For months now, our CBS News investigative unit has been exploring the dark, dangerous side of online dating.
She had done everything right. That is the first thing worth understanding about Erika DeMask, not as a disclaimer, not as a defense, but as a fact. She had worked, she had saved. She had paid down a home in Lombard, Illinois, a quiet suburb west of Chicago, and she had done it over decades of steady, unglamorous discipline. The kind of discipline that means saying no to things for years, so the number in the account keeps growing. By the time she reached her 60s, she had built nearly $1 million in investment accounts. That is not an inheritance. That is not luck. That is a lifetime of choices, made carefully, one at a time. She had raised her family in that house. She had watched her grandchildren grow up in it. Her husband had passed away years before, and she had kept going, kept saving, kept paying, kept building the kind of life that feels solid, because it was built on real things. There was a chalkboard in the garage. Her grandson, Teddy, was the only one who had ever written on it. She said every time she looked at it, it was hard. That chalkboard was not worth anything on paper, but it was part of what she had. And what she had earned. Then, not long after her husband was gone, she met someone online. That one sentence is where the story turns. Not because she did something wrong, because someone found her. The man appeared the way these things often do, gradually, and then all at once. He was attentive in a way that felt considered, not performative. He asked about her life. He remembered details. He wrote back quickly. He made her feel in the specific way that matters most to someone who has been alone after a long marriage, that she was seen. He told her he loved her. He sent her a large bouquet of flowers, real flowers, delivered to her door. When FBI investigators later heard about the flowers, they were reportedly struck by it, not because it was unheard of, but because it represented an extra level of investment. An extra step that most operations skip. He was not skipping steps. He told her he worked on an oil rig. He was overseas, reliable but unreachable in person, building towards something both professionally and personally. They talked regularly. The relationship deepened over time in the way that relationships do, through accumulated conversations, through the texture of daily contact, through the feeling that someone was there. She was not imagining it. The warmth she felt was a response to real effort, sustained, deliberate, daily effort by someone whose entire purpose was to produce that feeling in her. Weeks passed, months passed, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, something went wrong on the rig. He needed money, $20,000. She paused. She said she needed to pray about it. That hesitation was real. Her instincts were working, but so was everything he had built. And when the request came a second time, she sent $35,000. 2 weeks later, another $35,000. The requests kept coming, and so did she. Potential crime, call it pig butchering. Think of it the way a farmer operates. You do not slaughter an animal the moment it arrives. You feed it first. You tend to it. You invest time and care, not out of affection, but because patience increases the return. In a pig butchering scam, the scammer is the farmer. Every message, every phone call, every bouquet of flowers, every late-night conversation that felt genuine, that was the feeding stage. The goal was never one payment. The goal was the full account. The slaughter comes when the scammer has extracted as much as the target can give and then disappears. James Barnacle, who served as Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division, described it in documented public statements. Fraudsters fatten up the victims by enticing them to put more and more money into an investment, and then they slaughter them by walking away and stealing everything. The FBI estimated that in 2023 alone, these scams cost Americans nearly $4 billion. That figure represents thousands of real people, each of whom trusted someone, each of whom sent money they could not get back. And Interpol has documented that many of these operations are not run by one person with a laptop. They are run out of organized criminal compounds in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, staffed, structured, and scaled. What Erika DeMask encountered was not a spontaneous con, it was an industry. The escalation did not happen in a single conversation. That is precisely what the pig butchering name captures. It was slow by design. After the initial payments tied to the oil rig story, the framing shifted. The man began talking about investments, an opportunity he had access to, a position under his name, a way for her money to grow rather than simply move. He told her she would get double her return. That promise had a specific function inside the operation. It transformed what was happening from her helping someone she cared about into her participating in something that would benefit her. She was no longer giving, she was investing. That reframe is a documented feature of pig butchering. It is engineered to reduce resistance and increase the amounts transferred. And it worked. The transfers grew. Her son Ed DeMask later told reporters that she was sending $100,000 at a time, $300,000 at a time, $50,000 at a time. She moved money out of investment accounts she had spent decades building. She took out a home equity loan against the house she owned outright. Each transfer came after a conversation with a man she trusted, who had a clear explanation for why it made sense. She was not being reckless. She was acting on information she had been given by someone she believed. By the time the operation ended, by the time the man was simply gone, the total she had sent reached nearly $1 million. Every account emptied, and the person she had been talking to every day did not exist. If you have a parent, a sibling, a neighbor who has found connection online after losing someone they loved, keep what comes next close. Because what happened after the money disappeared is the part that a headline cannot hold. Erika DeMask was left with $400. That is a documented figure. $400 was what remained after nearly $1 million in savings had been sent. Account by account, transfer by transfer, to an operation designed from the beginning to take all of it. But the financial damage did not stop there. The home equity loan she had taken out against her house was still owed to a real bank on a real schedule. She also faced tax liability on the money she had withdrawn from her investment accounts. When you pull funds from retirement and investment accounts, the IRS treats those withdrawals as taxable income. She owed taxes on money that no longer existed. She had to sell her home, not as one option among several, as the only path left. She held a garage sale in the house she was losing. She stood in her own driveway and sold the things that a lifetime accumulates. The furniture, the objects, the glasses on the shelf that had belonged to her husband. She told reporters, "This is my garage sale, the beginning of a mess." And she said a lot of the things were hard to let go of because of whose they had been. She had to sit her children down and tell them how much she had saved. She told them in the same conversation that it was gone. She said she had to tell them because they had no idea she had that kind of money. That sentence is one of the quietest descriptions of loss in this entire story. What happened to Erika DeMask was not only the work of one criminal. It was made possible by a sequence of systems that were each positioned to intervene and did not. She processed her transfers through Fifth Third Bank, sending cashier's checks and wire transfers in amounts her son later described as obviously irregular. $100,000, $300,000, $50,000 repeatedly over a period of months. Ed DeMask told reporters the bank never raised a concern, never questioned why entire investment accounts were being closed and the proceeds wired out. Erika DeMask said the same. She kept transferring and no one at the bank ever asked why. Fifth Third Bank, in a documented letter to DeMask, stated that it asks customers a series of questions before wire transfers are processed, and that her answers did not raise concern for potential fraud. The bank told reporters it complies with applicable provisions of federal law. That may be legally accurate. Whether it is sufficient is the question the family's experience leaves open. The FBI was direct about one thing: speed matters. Barnacle stated in public remarks that the FBI's recovery asset team has recovered hundreds of millions of dollars for fraud victims. But that recovery depends on how quickly a report is made. Authorities were not able to recover DeMask's losses. The operation that took them was gone before the reporting began. That gap between when the money left and when the report was filed is where recovery becomes impossible. It is also, as it turns out, where the defense has to live. Now, what can you do with what you know? There is a three-part framework that would have stopped this operation at almost any point along its timeline. Not a vague suggestion, a specific executable set of actions. Call it the cut the feed framework, because that is what it does. It removes the one thing the entire operation runs on. The first action is the transfer rule. Never send money, not by wire, not by cashier's check, not in any form, to someone you have not met in person and verified independently. That rule has no exceptions that a legitimate relationship will ever require. The pig butchering operation runs entirely on transfers. No transfer means no slaughter. The feeding stage can continue indefinitely, but without the money moving, the operation produces nothing. The second action is the trusted contact registration. Most major financial institutions allow account holders to register a trusted contact, a person the bank can reach out to if they observe unusual activity. This is documented and available through the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It is not giving someone else access to your money. It is giving your bank a name and a number to call when something looks wrong. Ed DeMask was right there. A single call from the bank to him at any point during those months of escalating transfers would have changed the outcome. The third action is the outside voice. Before any financial decision involving someone you have met online, you describe the situation out loud to one person who is not inside the relationship with you. A family member, a friend, a financial advisor. You say it aloud. That act alone, removing the isolation, is the one thing the pig butchering playbook cannot survive. Go back to the farmer and the pig. The entire operation depends on one condition: that the target never has a real conversation about what is happening with someone outside the relationship. The oil rig story keeps the man unreachable and unverifiable. The investment framing makes the transfers feel like private financial decisions, not the kind you discuss with your children. The emotional bond makes doubt feel like betrayal. Everything in the playbook is engineered to maintain isolation. Cut the feed breaks that architecture directly. The transfer rule removes the outcome. The trusted contact registration puts a second set of eyes on the account. The outsource ends the isolation the operation needs to function. Any one of these, applied at any point during the months Erika DeMask was sending money, would have been enough. Together they make the operation structurally impossible to complete. These are not suggestions for people who are already suspicious. They are standing rules, set up before anyone appears, before any relationship begins, or the feeding stage has a chance to start. The farmer cannot fatten what it cannot reach. Erika DeMask is not a cautionary tale. She is a precise and documented example of what a professional criminal operation looks like when it is working correctly, and what it costs when no one stops it. She worked for decades. She saved carefully. She built nearly $1 million and a home and a life that was hers. The operation that was run against her was not designed for careless people. It was designed for the kind of person she was: disciplined, self-sufficient, private about her finances, and in a moment of her life when connection meant something real. She was found because those qualities made her a valuable target. And when it was over, she went on camera and said what happened, clearly, without self-pity, so that someone else might not have to stand in their driveway selling their husband's glasses. That is not what a person who failed looks like. That is what courage looks like, after everything has already been taken. If this story is sitting with you, there is one thing to do right now. Think of one person, a parent, a neighbor, a friend who lives alone, someone who has lost a spouse and rebuilt a life around what they saved. They may not know that pig butchering exists. They may not know it has a name and a documented playbook and a global infrastructure behind it. Not because they are not careful, because no one told them. You know now. Cut the feed, no transfers to online contacts, a trusted contact, on the account, one outside voice before any financial decision. That is what stands between a life someone spent decades building and the operation that was designed to take it. Erika DeMask told her story so you would have that. Pass it on.